given this opportunity to present the greenhouse recycling mock scenario. So in terms of introduction, they do recycling and waste disposal for industrial and medical customers. They have around 200,000 customers right now, and they expect to grow at 5% a year for the next 5 years. And right now they operate in the US and Canada with 150 offices and 300 facilities. And they have grown with acquisitions, and right now they're using mainly on large paper-based company. And they want to use Salesforce in terms to have a more integrated system and also to provide digital services to the customers. Next on slide 2, the key decisions and assumptions. We're going to go with a single org, mainly because they have similar business processes in all the countries. And I did not see any reason with they're hitting the limits, government limits. And also there are no regulatory requirements to have multiple orgs. We'll be using a multi-language, English, Spanish, and French. For that purpose, we'll be enabling a translation workbench and also using custom labels for translation to different languages. And also I'm assuming that we don't have any constraints on the budget. I see there are 2 risks areas in the project. One is there's a requirement to complete the solution and go live in 4 months. What I'm proposing is we have to have a discovery phase for this project to make sure that we define the scopes and the MVPs and do estimation and also look at the realistic timelines to see it's doable. Next, in terms to meet the regulatory requirements for system, this must be certified. So for that purpose, I want to make sure that we have knowledgeable SMEs based on the country that knows about the regulatory requirements, and we have to make sure they're part of the COE as the project goes through. Next on slide 3, the actors for this implementation. We have managers. For managers, I'm proposing to use Salesforce Sales Cloud, mainly because we're using cases for some of the requirements. Waste specialists and support reps are also internal. Waste specialists would be using, again, Sales Cloud for the use of cases. And support reps proposing to use Service Cloud will be using entitlements and omnichannel. And for that reason, we're using Service Cloud. Drivers, again, they'll be opening up cases. For that reason, proposing to use Sales Cloud as well. For customers, we have 2 kinds of customers. One is a primary contact, who are external users. I'm proposing to use CC Plus for them. And they'll be using a delegated admin feature. And also secondary customers, which are around 500,000, we will be using CC customer community licenses. Next, slide number 4, for the role hierarchy, we have managers in the headquarters, and then we have regions, 15 regions. And for each region, we have the office managers. And office managers, we have the waste specialists reporting to them. And on the waste specialists, we have the external customer contacts as account owners. And so we have 15 office regions like this. And also there's a support branch where we have the US support reps and the Canadian support reps and the role hierarchy as well. And the drivers, I did not see the way how they are being reported, how their data is going to be rolled up. So for that reason, we might have them in a separate node in the role hierarchy. Next on slide number 6, I'm going to go through the system landscape. So we have in the current system, we have Active Directory, which has all the identities of the internal users. We'll be using that to do a single sign-on to Salesforce with a IDP. So it seems they already have a existing single sign-on mechanism. So we'll be using the same IDP to support a single sign-on to Salesforce. They have a lead capture database, which we are going to decommission and move the data to Salesforce. And there are 4 logistics systems, 4 of them, and they'll be used for routing and scheduling, and we'll be integrating to the system as well. And then also we have an ERP system that has sales, accounting, setup accounts, support, and billing. Sales and support features would be decommissioned and moved to Salesforce, but the accounting and billing would remain in ERP. And there's another integration between logistics and ERP. We don't have much details, but there's a data going back and forth, probably through the ESP, not very clear, but there's an integration between the 2 systems right now. And also they have a custom desktop tools that they use to create the profiles, and which creates PDF versions, and we're going to decommission that as well, and that functionality would be moved to a Salesforce. And I'm proposing to use for ESB MuleSoft, where we'll have a single point of error handling, or the transformation of messages, the format, and retry mechanisms as a main benefits. We'll be using MuleSoft as ESP. And now for the data migration, we're using an ETL tool, Informatica, that we'll be using to migrate data into Salesforce. And ESP and ETL will be using a JotBearer token flow to have a secure connection with Salesforce, and we'll be enabling two-way SSL as well. And the orange line depicts a firewall. So ESB will be using cloud version, and also the IDP is also on the cloud. And in terms of Salesforce, we'll be using Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. Along with that, we'll be using CTI, and also on App Exchange, we'll be using DocuSign to generation of contracts. And also, in order to customer to contact through the to chat feature, we'll be using live chat as well. And to send in the SMS out, we'll be using another App Exchange product, SMS for Twilio. And we'll have a community for the customers, which includes customer community and customer community plus licenses. And users will be logging into that to serve their needs. And again, customers also, as I said, will be coming to the community in two ways: through the community, and the other one is they can use a mobile app. So for the mobile app, we'll be using a mobile publisher, which is going to be using a user agent flow for authentication. And also they can use Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as a social sign-on mechanisms. And for that purpose, we'll be using an auth handler for each of them, and also corresponding registration handlers. We can handle the create user and update user. And for this, we're using the OpenID Connect flow. And also we have an existing website for the company. And there's a lead form where we're going to capture the new prospects that can come through. And those prospects would be coming to sales using the web to lead feature to Salesforce. And also the drivers who are internal users, they'll be using the mobile app as well. For that purpose, we're using Salesforce Mobile, mainly to look at the customers and open cases. And for that purpose, we're using the standard Salesforce mobile. And as the red boxes are marked, which ones systems we are going to be decommissioning, and there's a firewall. Next, we'll be going to the data model in slide number 7. So as I said, we have leads coming in as prospects. We are on 12,000 leads coming in through different channels, including web to lead. And then for this leads, we'll be using a private sharing. So all the objects are private unless as mentioned. So we're going to go with the least privilege model. And the owner would be a support rep. So again, for the colors, green means I'm using standard objects, orange for the custom objects, purple is for external objects. And actors, we have waste specialists marked as WP and support reps marked as SR. And the customers are marked as accounts and contacts. And contacts, we have both the primary contact and secondary contacts. Accounts, we have around 250,000. That's going to be customers in 5 years. And we do the maths around 875,000 contacts. And again, both of them are going to be private and they're owned by the waste specialist. And also we have a requirement to capture financial data for the customer. So we have a separate object for that. We'll go to the requirement in big data, which again is a private, and owner is going to be a waste specialist, which is lookup. And then each account would have multiple locations, around 2 locations approximately, which are around 500,000 locations. And this has a master detail, which means OW is controlled by parent. And another 2 custom objects we have, the waste profile. So waste profile could be generated and as a location as well. And these 2 can be matched between the 2. So for example, one location could have tagged to many different waste profile, and a waste profile can be tagged to multiple locations. So for that reason, we'll be capturing, we'll be having a junction object between location and waste profile. And for each of these records, the customer can choose the schedule. So schedule would say, for example, day of the week, they can pick like Monday or Tuesday. Time of the day could be like 2 p.m. So they can say for location 1, waste profile XYZ. My day of the week is going to be Monday and Tuesday, and pickup time is 2 p.m. So after this data is entered by the customer, we're going to have integration where we are going to create the pickup data, which is going to be approximately 2 pickups per location per week. So the data would look like, it'll have an exact date and what location, and probably which customer as well. So we'll have another lookup for the customer. And also it says what time. So this data would be generated by the logistics systems, and which will have exact location the driver has to go and pick up the waste. And this is definitely if you look at the maths, it's around 52 million records are created per year is LDV. But since we are going to be storing the data as a external object in the logistics systems, my assumption is we can open the data through OData protocol, and then through MuleSoft we can do a translation and then bring the data through through Salesforce Connect. And also we have the users as drivers who are internal users, and they'll be assigned to a route. So the route would say, from to and the distance and the details, and each route would have this pickup data for a given route. So that's how the user would know, driver would know what are the pickup areas they would go to. And then they also can look at the account and open cases if required. And also we'll be using the standard case object to open cases, support requests both by the customer and the driver. And the owner, OWD would be private again, and the ownership would be support reps. So these are my custom, these are the orange ones are the custom objects, and we'll go through the data model again during the requirements. Next, we'll go to the requirements. So on page number 5, under business processes, first, the leads, how the leads are going to come in. So the different channels, as I said, on the website, we'll be having the web to lead form to bring the leads to Salesforce. And also on the point A, it says the prospect, the customers can make a call and then provide detail based on the phone number. It's on the website. So it'll be redirected. So there's not much details. So probably they can do the direction through IVR. But my assumption is we'll have need to have like screen pop. So we'll be using based on the IVR they have. We'll use a adapter and then a CTA adapter, and which use Open CTI and bring the call to the support rep. And the next one is other channels such as custom initiated chat would be needed. So for this we'll be using live chat along with Service Cloud. And also we have to make sure that if the agents are not available, we have a mechanism. We can set up a feature where we can open a case if they want to still have a chat, which we get the request to a case. Next, approximately 1,000 prospects are coming through different channels, so it's definitely within the web to lead limits. So for 500 a day, we can definitely handle that number of leads coming through. Number C, it says the support date is a pre-qualification of the prospects. So for this one, for this requirement, we'll have a quick action with a flow, which has all the questions, and we will have a kind of a guided flow where they can answer the question and do the pre-qualification. Next, after the pre-qualification is done, they make a customer. So we're going to be using a lead conversion for that. And it says, so before doing the lead conversion, they capture the waste type, locations, geography, and so on. So it'll be as part of lead conversion, we'll capture the data and then do the lead conversion. So at this time, a waste specialist is automatically assigned based on the information collected. So we need to do the automatic assignment. We'll be using a custom metadata where we'll house all the rules. It can be parameterized, so the admins can go and change the rules on how to pick the waste specialist. And during the flow creation, as part of the account creation, we'll assign the right support rep. Sorry, right waste specialist. Next, after that, there's some information that's going to be sent to the ERP, which will have an indication point in the next page. And it says some of the attributes are going to be locked in Salesforce, and only ERP can update. For that reason, those fields would be marked using field level security as read only. And only the integration user or the API user will have access to update those data, which is going to be mastered in ERP. Next, on page number 6, once the customer logs into Salesforce via desktop or mobile device, so at that time, my assumption is we'll enable them as a community user, probably by the base specialist. And at that time, they can log in through a mobile, which we're going to be using the mobile publisher and to the community. And they can create one or more base profiles for each location. So as I said, on the data model, we'll have, they can create the base profile, and then they can tie it up to which location it matches. Base profile creation forms must be highly interactive. For this interactivity feature, we'll be using a Lightning Web Component, which will have, based on the requirements, we can build a Lightning Web Component, which is more user-friendly for the user to sort and find base profiles and locations. And also after that, there has to be some rules must be confirmed to see whether waste stream can be disposed to safety according to federal, state, and local requirements. So based on the data we capture, we can determine whether what state and local it belongs to. Again, we'll have a custom material table where we can capture the requirements, and those rules can be validated during the flow of the data entry. Then the customer submits a base profile application to review the specialist. So on the base profile, we'll capture all the requirements, and then since the base specialist is the owner, they can review the data which is going to be entered by the customer. During the waste process, the waste profile, the system specialist also visit the location to capture some information. So my assumption is maybe like there are a few attributes, so we'll capture those same attributes on the waste profile itself, maybe the visited date and a few elements. So we'll have those attributes on the waste profile itself. And they want to upload videos and through the mobile app, so and pictures. So these are supported on the Salesforce mobile app. So we'll be using the standard Salesforce mobile app. And there's a requirement to say we need to capture the geolocation information. So for this purpose, we can create a Lightning Web Component that can get the geolocation of the customer cannot schedule a pickup for waste profile that has not been approved. Again, for this purpose, we'll have a validation tool where they cannot schedule. They cannot enter the schedule information, which are the month of the day of the week and time of the details, unless this waste profile is approved. We can have a validation tool on that. Customer sign in and location identify the approved location and waste profile and schedule service, and they can modify as well. Again, this picking the schedule has to be very interactive. We'll be using a Lightning Web Component to enter this data for the customer. Once the customer submits request scheduled in real time, so I'm assuming it's a real-time integration where we'll have a request reply where we need to inform the logistics systems. So for this, we'll be using the first integration point, actually number 2 here, where the submit of the schedule. So on Salesforce, we'll be doing a request reply call to the logistics systems, and the ESP would do the orchestration based on the profile and the country. It'll send to the right logistics systems. And Salesforce, what we'll do is during the flow, we call an external service, which in turn would have an Apex callout, which would be calling an ESP API hosted on the ESP. And then the API, ESP would call API on the logistics systems, and that response would come back through the ESP again since the request reply, and then through the flow, it can update the UI. So my assumption is when you say real time, it's the customer is waiting, and we have to use the request reply method. Next, so after the data comes, we have to at the last step, we have to confirm the schedule. So as part of in the flow itself, we can show the schedule for them to make sure it is confirmed. Next, for any reason the schedule cannot be confirmed, the request will remain in unconfirmed status. The customer will be notified via email. So if the status comes back from logistics systems so that they cannot confirm, based on the status, we can send an email in the same flow to the customer. And also we have to inform the support rep. So with the task. So for support rep, we'll be creating in the same flow, we create a new case and assign to the support rep queue, and then make sure they can track that particular issue. Next point, rep does not allow, so if they don't respond with the predetermined time, we have to escalate to the management. So on the case, we'll have a entitlement process with this particular milestone, and the action would be to create a task where we inform the management to get involved. But we'll have an entitlement process with the milestones on the case. Next, the logistics system need to make changes to schedule after it's established. For example, adding a new route, the customer is notified by SMS and mobile and notifications, email, SMS, and mobile. So when there's a changes, we'll use the second integration point, actually the third one, where we'll do the schedule updates would come from logistics to Salesforce. It'll be a remote call-in on the pattern. And then what will happen is logistics would call a endpoint on the ESP side, where ESP would in turn, which call Salesforce API, which would create a platform event, which is going to be synchronous. And then based on the platform event, a flow would process the platform event and create this update on the schedule. That's integration number 3. And based on the this record creation or the update, there would be, since flow is going to be the endpoint, flow would call we can send based on the customer preference through email to the customer. And as we are using the Twilio, you can use Twilio to send the message and the phone number to send the SMS. And also we'll be using mobile notification on the mobile publisher to send a notification as well. Next, now the pickup and disposal. At that time the drivers are involved. When the drivers, they follow a route. So as I said in the data model, they would have a particular route where they have the pickup location that they have to go in details, which will be the external object. And it says that each route is dedicated to a specific type of waste, and all waste for that route is taken to a special disposal facility. So during this interaction, the truck communicates with the logistics system every 60 seconds. And so it has a last location, GPS coordinates. And there's a requirement where the customer wants to know, what is the ETA and the current place of the truck. So for that reason, we'll be calling these logistics systems using this fourth integration points. So again, your ESP would know which logistics systems to route to. It will do the orchestration. And since the customer is waiting for the ETA and the location, last known location, we make a call out using a request reply again. So in the same flow where I said get ETA or location, flow would be used, which have external service with the Apex call out to the ESP endpoint, and then API would call the logistics API. And my assumption is that logistics system can do the calculation of the ETA as well, based on the custom location and the truck. And it will provide both the ETA as well as the last known location. And the response would come again through the flow, and then we'll update Salesforce. And for the last known location, we'll have a Lightning Web component on the mobile app, where we can show the last known location using lat lon on the map. Next, it says that logistics system can ability to notify systems when the completion of a pickup. So and the customer has to be notified. So for this one, we'll have a pickup completion event that will come from logistics. It'll be another remote call in to Salesforce. So they'll call a endpoint on the ESP, and ESP would call a API on Salesforce side, which will create a platform event, and platform event would be processed by the flow to send the notification out to the customer if they have subscribed for this notification. And number E, there's a nightly integration between logistics and ERP. So since there's an existing integration, it's not going to be part of the scope of the project. That integration will continue. Number 7 on the data migration. So we have to bring data of the last 2 years into Salesforce. So if you go to this slide number 8. So we'll be bringing the data from the lead capture database, ERP, and logistics, and also when the leads are coming from the system, we have to make sure they are not converted at customers. So not to avoid bringing duplicates. So when we do the extraction and on the staging environments, we have to make sure those rules are run to make sure only the leads are boarding. So the ETL, which is going to be Informatica, will do the profiling of the data, and also the data cleaning, especially the cleansing of the data, and the dedupe. So we have to make sure that we identify the rules upfront with the product owners, with the data stewardship ownership, where they can define the rules, and we have to make sure that this process is tested before to bring to Salesforce. From staging, we bring to Salesforce to the bulk API to our non-market here. But this process has to be tested in dev, QA, UAT, in many times, and also we have to make sure that our business processes are going to be working on top of the migrated data, especially in the UAT. We have to do the 100% data load. So we have to make sure we do the sequencing properly, load the parents first, and then the child with reference data, especially using the external ID. External ID, for example, could be on the customer, the ERP ID, along with the ERP system. And we can, since we have not, it's a brand new environment, we can turn off, automation can be turned on later on, especially the process builder and the triggers. And also the calculation could be turned on later on after the data is loaded. And we have to make sure, as part of the Informatica, we have to build a script where we can automatically run the script during the go live as well. So this should be like a repeatable process as part of the data migration team. And it will be a one-time load. It's not data, it's going to be a one-time load where we bring all the data before the use can go live. And also we're going to load the account hierarchy as well. For this reason, we'll be using the parent account concept in Salesforce. So on the account, we'll have a look up to the account, which is not on the data model. And for the PDF loading, we have to load this PDF. My assumption is we can use an external party to scan the PDFs, get especially the profile number, because we have to link to that profile ID of Salesforce. So after that conversion is done, we can use Informatica again to create a content version, and again a content document link where it will link to the parent record, this PDF files. Next, on the visibility requirements, page number 8. First one, where specialist should be able to view all customers, install and system data for their own customers. Since we have the owner of the account is going to be the where specialist, they could see the data of the customers, and this is going to be private as well. Next, where specialist will be able to view customer of install data on the all the other customers in the local office, except the financial data. So what we are going to do is the financial data would be a separate object where only the owner can see. But we'll be sharing these accounts using the role hierarchy, where we would have a sales rep, a particular office. So if it's owned by that particular sales rep, we can share to the role hierarchy for the other reps as well. So we'll have, since we're 150 offices, we'll have owner base 150 sharing rules to meet this requirement. We think this is within the limits. And the next is all the local region HQ. You can see this edit the customer and service data. So customer service data is also going to be cases. So again, we'll be using a similar sharing set to share those records among the offices. And then we can use a role hierarchy to move up the data across the role hierarchy as well. And also, which means they want to look at the financial data as well. So since it's a custom object, we have to turn on that feature where it says roll up the data through the hierarchy. Next, number 4, drivers who are internal users, they want to look at the pickup data of all the customers and the routes. So my thinking is, since they want to look at the moment they are tagged to a particular route, we want to add them to the accounting. So we'll have a lookup from here to the route data as well. So since they're going to be part of the account team, they would be able to see the pickup data as well using account team concept. Next, primary customer contacts should be able to edit only their own accounts and contact and location. So account is already going to be part of the implicit sharing. Their customer account could be edited by them. And for the location, we have the master jail relationship, so they can control by parent, they can update the data as well. For the waste profile, we'll be using a sharing set to give the access. So we'll be using waste profile dot account is equal to user contact account, where they'll have a matching on this profile, and then we can share the data. So there are certain customers with multiple customers, so they have a hierarchy where they want to see the, especially the few accounts would have hierarchies. So we'll be using external account hierarchy for this purpose. Only thing we have to keep in mind is only the top level role would be seeing the data once it rolls up. So we'll use an external account hierarchy, and if there's a child account, the child account data could be seen by the parent account who's under the highest level of the role on that particular parent account. And the number 7, supported should be able to see all data within the geography. So for this one, for this purpose, we'll have 2 criteria-based sharing rules where we tag these records based on the region, US or Canada. And based on that criteria, we'll have 2 criteria-based sharing rules for that case object and the account data, and also function data, where they would be able to share the records. Reporting requirements. First one is supported system specialists and managers should be run reports on sales activity, schedule, service, and provided. So these are going to be sales, schedule, and service provided, which are cases. So we'll be using standard Salesforce reporting. Number 2, they want to see some ad hoc reporting. So I want to make sure that if the record is not very clear. Salesforce itself could have trending reports which can go to 3 months, after 3 months. But if they want to do trending for a long period of time, we have to use Einstein Analytics as a reporting tool, and then we can give access to the manager, which includes additional licenses where they can look at these reports. Number 3, all customer contacts should be able to run reports showing issues, which are cases as well. So for this purpose, my assumption is we could give a list view of all the cases and with a summary as well. And then we can use a chart on that list view for them to give the reports. But I did not see any reason to give them any other reports for this purpose. Number 4, customer contacts should be able to run historical reports, both summary and detail, in the waste pickup history. Again, this could be a standard report in Salesforce. So anyway, CC plus users would have access to these reports. But even if the secondary customers needs to create view these reports, we have to give them CC plus. So we have to make sure which contact want to see. Based on that, we have to update this license if needed. Number 5, GIs would like to report to run on the live data coming from a public website, which has a summary data of the cases. So we'll be using a lightning out mechanism where they could have a lightning web component can be developed and hosted could run on the external website. We should do a call out to get the data from Salesforce. Next one, project requirements. We talk about first one, multi-language. Number 2 is about they have 6 separate teams across US, Canada, and India responsible for 2 ERP systems, logic systems. The logic systems need to particularly operate with a great deal of autonomy. So for this purpose, and also they won't have a technical standards. For the reason, I'm proposed to have a global COE where we would have representations from all the teams, which covers all the regions as well, and also which includes product owners that will be a part of the COE. And also with the technical standard, we'll have an architecture review board, which have the architects and head of development, where we can define the standards up front and the norms and how to do the testing as well. Those could be delivered in the beginning of the project. We make sure we follow the standards. Number 3, the source code is shared. The testing development is currently manual. So for this purpose, we have to make sure we have a kind of a formalized process where the developers will be using scratch logs, and they'll be check into the source control, which can be Git in this scenario. And we'll have a tool like Bamboo. We can do the automated environment migrations to dev integration, QA, UAT, production. So we can have separated environments to make sure that testing is going to be progress from beginning of unit testing, regression, functional, and user acceptance testing. And also in the dev integration, we'll be doing in the test classes. And also if there are no integration available, we'll be doing stubs and mocks setup to test the integration upfront. And the QA, we can most likely use a Selenium, which is going to be automated testing, which will deviate most of the problems we have. And also in the UAT, we have to make sure we get the sign-off from the users before we reach production. And also we do perform a load testing and performance testing, and also most importantly data load testing that we want to do data load as well. And part of the check-in to Bamboo, we'll be running automated test scenarios, test scripts as well. And also we can use tools like PMD to do the code quality as well. And we'll be using a branching strategy where the master channel, which will go to the production, which will support hotfix as well if needed. And then each developer would have a feature branch. They work against a feature, and which they would check into a develop branch, which will go to the dev init and QA, and then the release branch would be release branch would go to the QA and UAT before it goes to production. So we'll have a branching strategy along with the multiple environments with the different testing strategies along with the source control. And also there's a requirement, they want to have regulatory requirements. As I said in the very beginning, you have to have these regulatory SMEs on the COE, and they have to be part of the sprint demos and the user requirement sign off to make sure this feature has an impact on the regulatory requirements. Those have to be tagged and handled carefully. Sales management would like to simultaneously release the project in four months. So as I said, we have to make sure we look at the MVPs and make sure we have the project estimated and right number of resources and time should be allocated for this project. So I'm proposing to have a discovery phase before the project starts for a week or so to make sure everything is aligned. And we have to make sure the CEO is aware of this requirement and they sign off as well. And they're looking for a guidance on optimal plan, including how to prioritize and track the work across entire time initiative. So again, the POs would have the authority to prioritize the backlog as part of the MVP, and those backlog items could be divided into different sprints as part of the sprint planning workshop, cadence meetings. Riaz would like to recommend on how to manage projects to address project priorities and design issues, team management, and organizational issues. So for this purpose, as I said, we'll be establishing a COE, which has the right personnel who can sign off, and which will have the steering committee, which will make sure project is on track. And for that purpose, we have to make sure we have establish a COE. And since we have we're using different Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter as open, I want to quickly go to the flow that we're using. So we'll be using the single sign-on flow for this purpose, where the browser, the user, will be making a call to log into the relay party. So this relay party would be Salesforce. OpenID would be like Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. So when the request is made, first we're gonna the relay party Salesforce is gonna make an auth code request, which will be HTTP redirect to the OpenID provider to the authorization endpoint to get the authorization token with the response time of code, which will have the redirect URL, client ID, and scope. And then the user is gonna type the user ID password if they don't have a session already established. And based on the authentication and the user ID password and on the consent, the OpenID provider would send the auth code response back to Salesforce to the redirect URL that we provided in the first step. And then on the back channel, Salesforce will make a access token request and get a response back. So that access request would be a post request where the OpenID provider would validate the client ID secret and the auth code and send the response back. So in this time, we are going to get the ID token as well, some of the information about the user. As optionally, we can get additional information by calling the user endpoint and get the details back to Salesforce. And after the ID token access is provided, Salesforce will run through the logic of the registration handler based on the OpenID Connect provider to make sure it's a new user or it's an update of a user entry. And after that's done, Salesforce would give the user access to all this browser to call additional APIs to get additional information. So that's OpenID Connect we'll be using when the user comes to the community to social channels. Let's make sure I have all the requirements. I think I'm done with the requirements. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for questions.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks very much. Could we go first to your data model, please? So here you're using this junction object for location, waste profile, and schedule. And I think you mentioned that the contracts would be associated with that object. Is that right? Yeah,
the DocuSign contracts, yeah.
Okay. And if a customer wants to add an additional location to their order, could you just talk through the process of that and in relation to the contracts?
Yeah. So my assumption was the contract would be per location, per waste profile, per schedule, where we would, for example, if you want to add a new location against an existing profile or a new profile, it would be a new contract. But if the assumption says, it could be for the entire company, then I would have the contract against the customer. But my assumption was whenever a new record is added or modified, the contract has regenerated.
Okay.
Because there could be an implication on the price or the cost.
Yeah. Okay. And there's the actual drop-offs of the waste are dropped off at disposal locations. How does that fit into your data model?
Yeah. So I mean, since my assumption was since there's a different app which is going to be provided by the logistics systems, where the driver is going to follow the pickup locations and the drop-off. So my assumption was that will be managed outside of Salesforce in the logistics systems where they drop off and so on. I didn't see a requirement to bring that data or to make that data visible in Salesforce.
Okay. Okay, cool, thanks. Jakub, do you want to?
Okay, so I would like to ask at the beginning about your lead conversion. On your data model, lead is not related to any custom objects, and I would like to understand what happens if, for example, during the lead creation process, you capture information about locations and waste profiles, and how then you are going to make this conversion.
Yeah, so my thinking was that all the data would be on the lead that they're going to capture, and the service rep is going to do the conversion, and then they're going to start adding additional data on the waste profile. But if this has to be automated to create the waste profile at the time of account creation, we can find out whether it came through a lead. There's a lead converted or a link to say whether it was a converted lead on the accounts. At that time, on the save record of the account, we can say we can bring the data to the account record, and then based on that, we can create a additional data to bring the data to the waste profile. But I want to also make sure that we don't give those account data to be updated to the user. It has to be on the waste profile itself.
Okay, thank you. Johann?
Thank you very much, Varuna. Thanks for you chose for your ETL Informatica. Can you walk me through your decision process there?
Yeah, since we have going to be, I mean, even ESP and MuleSoft could do the ETL work, but since this has data coming in through different systems, and we have to do the data dedupe and cleansing, and also a lot of other work. So Informatica is very scaled to handle this, working on the staging environments and running scripts and do most of the automation, which MuleSoft does not have those kind of capabilities. So for this one, I want to make sure there's a repeatable process where a data load could going to go smoothly in each and every environment. So for that purpose, I use Informatica.
So are you saying MuleSoft cannot do this ETL process with scripts?
They can, but the Informatica is much more robust, and they've been doing this for a long time. And also we can find more resources for Informatica base who are like optimized or meant for data loading, high volume data loading.
Okay, thank you very much. Lawrence?
When you were discussing the requirements around leads, you talked about using custom metadata to control the configuration of how the leads are allocated to users. What was your rationale for recommending that solution?
Not the leads. Once the leads are converted to assign the waste specialist, because this requirement says waste specialist should be assigned automatically. So to use the metadata was to make it configurable. So for example, if they want to add additional criteria, the admins can go and add a record rather than doing a code change or a version change of the code. So to make it more parameterized than hard coding the rules.
Okay, so the waste specialist is assigned to the account. Okay, and just a quick question in that area as well. You talked about the system of record of the accounts, account data being outside of Salesforce. Can you talk about if a representative was adding an account directly rather than through lead conversion, how would that process work? Yeah, actually, system record is I say ERP certain fields. So in the example, on page number 5, it says certain attributes, they're not very clear, are going to be like captured in the ERP. So at that time, that record, I want to make sure that those fields are not available to be edited in the Salesforce. So for that reason, there'll be FLS on those fields. But the customer creation would happen in Salesforce. But my assumption is at the time of one of the integration points, submit schedule. At that time, we have to get the customer number as well, and make sure we have a corresponding record in Salesforce as external ID, so we can make sure that exact record can be updated. Okay, so are you assuming here that the data attributes are set in the ERP system rather than provided to Salesforce by the users?
No, the customer would be created in Salesforce, and as part of the integration, because here they're not very clear at the time of the creation customer, you're doing the integration or not. But my assumption was at the first time of the submitting the schedule, there could be and from logistics to ERP also there's an integration. So at that time, once the customer is created, that customer number could be brought back to Salesforce.
Right, and the preventing the data attributes from being updated. So you mentioned you use field security.
For this case, it says ERP system considers system of record for those data attributes, or some specific attributes. So for those attributes, my assumption was ERP would capture the data and not Salesforce.
I see. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Jakub.
Okay, so I would like to ask you to go to page number 7, and there is one requirement about sending some notification via SMS, email, or mobile notifications based on the customer preferences. I would like to understand how the customers are going to manage their preferences.
Okay, yeah, so it could be a first part of the lead and contact capture, the waste specialists or the support specialists could capture that as well. And also we can make sure these attributes are exposed as on the profile of the contact when they log into the community. And they could update the, for example, like the phone number, they can update these preferences as well. And based on that, so we can give the access to the community.
Okay, and could you explain me what are the alternatives if we want to, like, because now we have to keep emails, SMS, and mobile notifications in Salesforce and build some kind of the logic to handle these preferences and sending all this stuff. Is there any product which we can use to have all of them in the available in the single place?
Yeah, we can use, to send to different channels, we can probably use a Marketing Cloud. I didn't see like any other requirements other than the notifications, like a journey builder or anything. I didn't see any. That's why I didn't use Marketing Cloud, but Marketing Cloud could definitely handle the preferences and sending to the light channel.
Okay, thank you. Johann?
Yes, thank you, Jakub. This is a very good question. You coming back to the data model, system landscape, I'm very sorry. You have MuleSoft, the ESB, outside of your firewall. Can you walk me through your thought process where you have it outside of the firewall and not inside? The same question for the IDP.
Yeah. So for so MuleSoft, they have both on-premise and cloud versions. So for this reason, I picked cloud because it could be on the cloud, and then you can still connect to the systems behind the firewall through like on-premise adapter. And Informatica I use because right now Informatica is going to be pulling the data mainly from the internal systems. And also we want to have a staging environment behind the firewall because it's going to house a lot of data, which is going to be dedupe and cleanse. For that reason, I kept it behind the firewall. And also IDP, I'm not sure exactly what IDP they're using, especially if you have say, for example, Okta. It can be outside of the firewall, but then if you want to correspond with something behind the firewall, there could be a Okta like adapter agent running on the DMZ layer behind the firewall. So it's basically your preferences where you're gonna have a on-premise versus off-premise or a cloud version.
So which one do you recommend now? Yeah,
I'm gonna go with this recommendation. We can have ESB mainly for the integration is gonna be on the Salesforce is gonna be cloud as well. So it's gonna be outside the firewall, ETL behind the firewall, and then existing IDP. So I'm gonna be using existing IDP. They're not very clear whether it's behind the firewall or outside. I just assume it's going to be outside the firewall. But this could be, based on where they are right now, we can keep as is.
Thank you very much. Lawrence?
Okay. So the requirements, section 2A, there's two sub-requirements there, 5 and 7, that relate to email notifications.
Page number, what is the page number, Lawrence? Sorry.
Page number 7. Page 7.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You may have slightly different page numbers. Now let me. So there's let me read you the requirements. There's so first requirement is this: if for any reason a schedule cannot be confirmed, the request will remain in an unconfirmed state. The customer will be notified by email. Support rep will be tasked to follow up for resolution. Second requirement: if the logistics system needs to make changes to the schedule after it's established, blah blah blah, the customer is notified by email, SMS, and/or mobile notification, depending on preferences. Am I correct to think that you suggested using Flow to send emails from Salesforce for these requirements, or were you thinking of something else?
I was using Flow.
Okay. Is there anything that you might need to be, or yeah, could you talk about some of your assumptions in relation to that decision?
Yes. So since this update is going to come through to the logistics systems, and then we're going to use a platform event. So as part of the platform event processing, I'll be using a Flow. So based on that data that's going to come in on the same flow, we would update the status, and with that, I was going to send the email from the same flow itself.
Okay, and so there's so at the beginning of the scenario, was mentioned that there's around 200,000 customers, each with two waste pickups per week from 2 different sites, I think it is. Is there anything that we need to be concerned about in terms of those numbers?
Yeah. So yeah, actually, yeah. So so they were saying they want to send the notification only if they have subscribed to send that notification. If they want to subscribe for that pickup notification. So I didn't do. I mean, I thought the volume is not going to be that high. But if all the customers subscribe, then definitely again we can use that Marketing Cloud feature where we said is a better option for this feature. So we can use Marketing Cloud to send the same notifications. So we have one system to send all notifications, including the pickup and the other updates on the schedule.
Thanks. And a quick one just in the same area. This process of a support representative will be tasked to follow up for resolution. How will that work?
Yeah, so for the task, I'm creating a case. And then on the case, since they want to make sure they address the case on a certain window. So for that purpose, I'm using Salesforce like a milestone entitlement process with milestones to make sure if they don't address, we'll have a action to create another task.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to make a short follow-up question because you mentioned milestones and entitlements, and I didn't see them on your data model. Could we go to the slide? And if you can say how these milestones, entitlements, and so on are stored in the database.
Yeah, so, so as part of the setup, you would have the entitlement process and the milestones in a milestone object and the entitlement object. But then against the case, whenever a record is created, there'll be a milestone specific record created against the case. So there'll be another object that will say related to the case, there's a milestone going on. And also based on the milestone, when that point is reached, for example, it's creating a task, then it will create that particular task in the Salesforce events and task object. But then we have 2 objects for the setup, and then against the case for each when the case is created, it would have a new record saying there's a entitlement going on, or a milestone is being worked on, where it can calculate the how long it's valid for. And
okay, and could you remind me, because you are going to create entitlements per every account, and do you have different SLAs for accounts, or there is some generic support process for all of your accounts?
I assume it's going to be generic because they didn't specify by account type one thing. They're going to have different SLAs. My assumption was be like one standard.
Okay, so do you see any alternatives to do not create so many entitlements which are going to store exactly the same information?
As part of the setup, or as part of the case?
As part of your general solution, like what we can do if instead of going with case milestones and entitlements, we would have concerns about, for example, data storage, and we would like to have exactly the same support process without creating so many records.
Sorry, Jakub, I could not understand the question.
Okay, like my point is that you are going to create many entitlements, and all your entitlements are going to have exactly the same information. So it's going to make some impact on your data storage. And I'm asking, is it possible to solve this requirement? So build the same final solution with, for example, using only flows without creation of entitlements and milestones to build something custom, for example.
Yeah, I mean, for entitlements and milestones are not required, we could create when this for the task creation, we can definitely at the time we can create a time-based process builder task where we would check whether if there's no action, it'll get triggered. But if the case has some kind of a action, the record can be removed. So it's another option. We can have time-based process builder actions.
Okay, thank you. Johann?
Yes. Can you back to your data model? You have this pickup data as an external object. Can you walk me through how the pickup data is not exposed to users which should not see them? Or can you walk me through who sees the pickup data?
Yeah, so there are two actors. One is drivers when they want to go in a route. So for drivers, my assumption is they just want to see the customers that they're working with, and they have a logistics system has its own app. So my assumption is that that data could be given to them through their logistic app. For the customers, we want to make sure that we show only the when they log in, they want to look at what are the upcoming pickups I have and what time, so they can look at this data through external object. But I want to make sure we look at the security as well. So when a customer logs in, we have to make sure that the data is going to be derived only for that customer and not for other customer pickup data. So to make sure we don't expose this as a global search or we have to make sure that all data visibility, all data should not be given. So for that purpose, when we call the external object, we can.
How do you stop all data to be visible via external objects for the customer?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the data is going to be a query on the external logistics systems. So in the API call on the query, we can ask them to make sure if a query comes in all customer, the data should not come, and then this one should be only by where account number equals the account number of the pickup data on the systems. So account number can be passed.
So can we walk me through? Our customer makes an API call against, an API query against the pickup data, a malicious customer. How do you stop? How does this the source system make sure this customer doesn't get pickup data it's not supposed to?
Yeah, so this API call is going to be exposed on the ESB. So on the ESB, I would have a mechanism where if customer number is not provided, that query would be rejected. The API call will be rejected.
But what if our customer provides a customer number which is not its own customer number?
Yeah, so for that purpose, I want to make sure that the call is coming only from Salesforce. We honor that, if not from outside.
No. Our customer makes a call via the Salesforce API to Salesforce, select ID from pickup data. How do you make sure?
Yeah, so I would, okay. So if the customer goes and update the customer number, good question. So I'm going to pass on that, Johann.
Would you like to change your solution?
Yes, I mean, if the security concern is there, so I want to make sure, if you can get an agreement from the business where we would show not this 52 million, but like say for example, the next months or 2 months or last months, we can restrict the data. Then I would, with that agreement, I would have the data a subset, which is not before the LDV limits are hit. I would have the data housed in Salesforce, so we can have record level security.
So which solution do you propose?
Yeah, so when the pickup data is entered, I would have an object in Salesforce, which will have the data, where we can implement the record level security. And for data which is outside of the window, I mean, the first way to make sure that we get the business requirement to make sure they want to see a certain number of records, and also if it's a high volume, we to make sure that we optimize the data, the queries to bring the queries in an optimized way and house the data in Salesforce.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any implications on other parts of your solution when you change that object? When you change the data is now internal?
If it's internal, I want to make sure that we have the right lookups. It's going to be a custom object, so I don't see a reason in terms of licenses. And we make sure the right lookups are there for which customer, for which this profile schedule you want to see the data. So I don't see any impact on the, other than because it's a custom object.
What about around sharing or reporting?
Yeah, so sharing, it'll be, as long as you have access to the schedule, location-based profile, I would have a probably master data to make sure who have access here to see the same schedule data to pick up. It's only for the customers right now, not for the drivers.
Do you see any risk around having a master detail relationship there?
Master detail will always have some concerns, so we can make sure it's still controlled by parent, and then have the visibility who owns this one, have the record same to the child object as well, and we can go through a lookup stuff and do.
Okay, as far as I can see,
sorry, how would the drivers access the pickup data?
My assumption is they would use the app from the logistics system to look at the pickup data.
And how would it be shared with them?
Because the pickup data is currently housed in logistics systems, and they are using the app right now to do the pickups, so they'll continue the same way.
But you just brought the data into Salesforce.
That's only for the customers. So for the customers to say, okay, what are the upcoming pickups they have? Not for
Can you maybe go back to the accessibility requirements and number 4, and read the requirement one more time, please?
Sorry. Okay, number 4. Driver should be able to view customer and pickup data for all customers on their routes, both past and present. Yeah. So my assumption is only the customer would be in Salesforce, where they would, because they want to open a case. So for that, I added them in the account team when the drivers are involved, they do part of the route. But for the pickup data, my assumption is because they have to, they're going on a truck, and then they will see on a map where to go.
I get your assumption. My assumption is different. My assumption is they access the data from within Salesforce drivers. How would you solve that then?
How to get access to the pickup data? Okay. Yeah, so I'll have a from the pickup data, I would have a lookup to the route table. So they would first pick the route, and they want to see all the pickup data part of that route, which is going to be in this custom object. So I would give them I would give this for the driver profile. I'll make sure they have view data visibility on this profile to look at the data, and have because the driver is a lookup, right? So I can use a lookup to give access to this records. They're internal users.
Okay.
But I thought are they not master detail with the schedule? Are you changing that?
Yeah, I went with the lookup.
Okay. How would you provide access to the drivers to just the appropriate records?
Yeah, I'll have them as the owner. The driver would be the owner of the record. And this one would be shared through the customer using a share set.
Okay, thanks. Can we move to the your sign-on flow, please?
Okay.
So could you talk about, so you mentioned the registration handler here. Could you talk about what happens within the registration handler?
Yeah, so there'll be a reg handler for each auth provider. So on the reg handler, we can configure how the user is identified, first name, last name, or email. And based on that, reg handler can decide whether it's a existing user or a new user. If it's existing,
how does it make that assessment?
So we can have a query parameter where you can say query the user record by this criteria. We can update the.
Let me put it a different way. So there, could you explain the standard methods that are implemented in the registration handler interface?
Create user, update user.
And how does Salesforce decide which of those to call?
Yeah, so in the reg handler, we can define the search circle, how we're gonna run it. So there you can say it's by the first name, last name, or email address, and then if they find a record, it's an existing user. If not, it's a new record, new method.
Okay, although I think you don't have an opportunity to do that before you get in one of those methods.
Sorry, you mean like a part of new registration, or?
Well, I guess my question was where, so that would be logic that you could do within create user or update user. But so Salesforce itself will decide whether create user or update user would be called. And do you know, do you have an idea how it would make that decision?
My thinking was is based on that the query, but I'm going to pass on that.
Cool, no problem. And for this flow, so this is used for the community. Sorry, the community users using the mobile app. So could you talk about, so as part of the OAuth flow of that community app, could you talk about how that OAuth element is embedded around this flow? Yeah, so if you're coming to the mobile app, you'll have a use agent flow that will start the process, and then at the end of the process, there'll be a use agent as well. So as part of the use agent flow, so it's a use agent, and embedded that within that you have the OpenID flow. So use agent flow would call the Salesforce authors endpoint to start the process, and then Salesforce would know that this community has the my domain. So the my domain where they be routed to the my domain page where they pick at the time say for example Facebook, and then you start this flow, the OpenID connect, and at the end again you would ask the Salesforce would ask for the scopes to be for the mobile app scopes to be consented, where the user would say, okay, for this connected app for the mobile device, I'm going to consent the scopes, and at that time after that it'll in the flow of the use agent. But on top and then we have the use agent flow that will start and end, and within that you have the OpenID. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a few more questions about the mobile application. Firstly, on page, I think number 6 or 7, you have one requirement that something is going to be sent every 60 seconds to the logistics system. And as far as I remember, your solution was quick action. Could you find this requirement? I'm trying to find it as well. It's page number 7 in the middle of the page. Exactly.
Okay.
So I would like to double check with you. Does it mean that the user every minute must to click this quick action to send this update?
No. So the every 60 seconds, the GPS location would flow to the logistics systems. My assumption was that some of the customers might want to just check randomly where the truck is, for example, if it's delayed. So my assumption is not every customer is going to be checking this where the driver is and where the ETA is. So with that assumption, my thinking was it'll be like a request that will come at a very infrequent manner. So at that time, I would call the logistics systems and figure out okay where the truck is, and then they get the ETA.
Okay, but let's make assumption that This requirement says that truck communicates with its logistics system every 60 seconds. And for example, we want to take a look as the owner of the company where are currently my trucks, or maybe I won't be sure that nobody has stolen them. So if literally we have to send this communication every minute on automatic way, how we can solve this requirement?
So you want to see for all the trucks where they are in Salesforce?
No, I want to solve a requirement that every truck once a minute, every 60 seconds, sends to the logistics system the GPS coordinates. So like how it can be done to send this information automatically, not on demand when somebody wants to check where is the truck.
So I think I'm not very clear. So right now it sends every 60 seconds to the logistics systems. So are you saying the requirement is to see that data in Salesforce like near real time? I'm not very clear.
I would like to understand how this information from the truck is sent to the logistics system. Do you assume that it already exists and you are not modifying it, or is it going to be sent via some integrations from your landscape?
Yeah. So in this, my assumption is it says the driver or the truck will have a device where it'll capture the GPS and sends every 60 seconds. So it's my assumption is it's an ongoing process.
Okay. And so I will have one more question about the mobile application. In one requirement, you mentioned that you are going to use mobile application to upload some videos. It's going to be on page number 6 at the top of the page. The specialist can take picture and or videos of the waste profile with their mobile device. Could you remind me, what are the limits of uploading videos and pictures via Salesforce mobile application?
Yeah, the limit is 100 MB on the files. So if it's, yeah, so question is 100 MB.
Okay, and if the video size will be more than 100 MB, what then we can do with this?
Yeah, then I would have an approach where we have to upload them to a like a off-platform system, like for example, Box. So where they could upload the file to Box, and then in Box you can have a mechanism where you can have record level sharing. So as long as you have access to a particular customer, you could give the access to the Box file as well. So they can use a Box app on the device, upload the files, and then through the setup, we can make sure that that particular folder related to the customer can be shared with that in Salesforce as well.
Okay, thank you. Johann?
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a question around. Yeah, you suggest the mobile publisher. Can you walk me through your reasoning? Why the mobile publisher?
Yeah, so mobile publisher, it gives a branding, which is going to be customer facing, so to have branding. And also it provides a mechanism where you don't need to type user ID password each time you open an app. And also Salesforce can take care of the deployment to the app stores. So your burden is you give it to Salesforce. And also you can take the benefit of Salesforce releasing these multiple features and use that feature from Salesforce.
Okay. What exactly do you mean by user does not have to type in username and password? How does this exactly work?
Okay, yeah. So based on the like refresh token, Salesforce internally refresh your session for a long duration. So you don't need to type your ID password each and every time you open the app.
So will the app store my password?
On a session cookie, yeah, session cookie. Not it will not store it. It will be OAuth based, but the mobile app would know that you have a session that you had opened in the past, and it'll be a longer session.
So it will use the session cookie, sorry, or what will it use to re-authorize with Salesforce?
I mean, it'll use a refresh token that it got from Salesforce to to extend the session. If the auth session is auth token is invalid, it'll use the refresh token to get a new auth token in the background.
Mm-hmm. And where do you find this auth token, this refresh token?
where do you find it?
Where do you define it?
On the connected app.
Okay. And do you know which options you can have there for refresh token?
Yeah, you can say, for example, there are you can say refresh token is revoked when it's so you have a very short period for validity, or you can say keep it until the user request again. So there's few setups where you can say how long you want to keep that session valid for.
Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Could we just jump to your integrations table, please? So for these remote call-in integrations, you're specifying the logistics system calls by the ESB to Salesforce and raises a platform event. What was your thinking behind that that mechanism?
Mainly to keep it asynchronous. So to keep it synchronous, you have so it's not going to be a what do you call a it could run its own threads, and then there's no requirement it to be processed right away. So that's the reason I went with the platform event. And there could be down the road, if there are more subscribers, they could leverage the same message to be processed. And then you would have the platform event for some time, so you can have mechanisms to retry and reprocess if required.
Okay. Any disadvantages of that over, say, a REST call-in?
That's fine. I mean, REST call-in, so it's like a kind of
like using a call-in to the standard Salesforce APIs. So like, yeah, so to update records through the standard Salesforce. So Salesforce API.
If it's a platform event, there could be other subscribers, so flow could process, and then there could be another subscriber that can look at the record. That's the only reason. So you don't need to call multiple endpoints. So with the endpoint, it's the one target you have. With the platform event, you could have multiple subscribers.
Cool. But any disadvantages to the platform event approach?
We have to make sure that we look at the numbers, and then if there's a high volume, that we get the high volume licenses. And also, Salesforce doesn't guarantee the sequence, so to make sure that ESP or somebody is going to make sure that they process the record in the right sequence.
Cool. Okay, thank you.